As you guys can tell from the title of this video, this is going to be the top 10 highest damage bloodlines in Shindo Life. Now, it has been a big while since my last video, and they have nerfed a lot of the big damage bloodlines, and they've obviously released some new big damage bloodlines. So if you guys enjoyed this video, remember to like, subscribe, right to the video guide. Alright, so coming at 10th place is going to, of course, be the 10 Goku bloodline. Now, this is obviously known as one of the highest damage bloodlines in the actual game. As you guys can see, even though this bloodline isn't generally viewed as being very good, the one thing it does do well is just have absolutely fat damage numbers. Now, a lot of the damage amounts do actually come from the actual abilities rather than the mode, but the mode definitely has a lot of damage attached to it as well, with it, as with obviously huge damage M1s. Just the rotation of all the abilities plus M1s is about 500,000 damage, so it's quite a bit of damage from the actual bloodline. Now, unfortunately, since then, things have been definitely, very, very power creep, so there's just higher damage things in the game now, but Goku is one of the OG high damage bloodlines in the actual game. So coming in 9th place is going to be Pika-Senko. Now, I'm sure some of you guys that know what Pika-Senko is in this game, you guys kind of expected this. I mean, Pika-Senko was kind of one of those bloodlines that, everyone kind of knew that has done a lot of damage. Like, if you see someone using Pika-Senko third on you, you're gonna, like, instantly have a bad day. I mean, like, the third ability, it does around 100k damage now. It still does a bit of damage. It used to do way more damage, but it was obviously nerfed. But Pika-Senko itself still does quite a bit of damage. I mean, the bloodline still does a lot of damage. It's kind of just, it's one of those things that people generally don't use just because there's better versions of all the abilities, but the bloodline itself does do a lot of damage. Hence why it's going to be, 9th place on the highest damage list. I mean, what else did you guys expect? Now, coming in 8th place is going to be Satori Rengoku. Now, I'm not going to talk about this that much because it's honestly for one ability alone, which is the first one. Now, this doesn't work with Satori Gold because for some reason they nerf Satori Gold, and also sometimes it glitches out, but it could do a maximum of like 160, 170k in mode. Now, that's the only reason why Satori Ren's actually going to be on this list, so take it as you will. Now, coming to 7th place is actually be Ren Shiki. Now, a lot of the high damage potential of Ren Shiki comes from the mode because obviously, guys, the mode has the absolutely, the second mode specifically has the absolutely massive damage C-spec. The M1s do a lot of damage. The mode is a lot of the damage amount, but the actual abilities themselves also do quite a bit of damage. It may actually be surprising to some of you guys. So as you guys see, second ability 52,000 average damage, third ability, but a lot of the damage actually comes from the first ability, which is actually a counter. Now, when they actually punch you, it does around 16k a hit, and if they use something like Raisin Shuriken on you, you will literally do like 80,000 damage to them. It's pretty hilarious. But like I said before, a lot of the damage potential of Ren Shiki does come from the mode, but the mode does a lot of damage itself. The coming to 6th place is going to be Shiro Glacier. Now, I was going to use the Sub-Zero skin, but I decided not to just because I didn't want to flex too hard on you guys. I mean, like, look how drippy I am right now. But, drip aside, Shiro Glacier obviously does a ton of damage. It's by far one of the highest damage bloodlines in the game. Not to mention, it actually is a very underrated bloodline as well. I mean, like, just because it also, obviously, guys, it has huge damage amounts. The abilities are also quite good as well. I mean, like, the C-spec is pretty much almost infinite flight as long as you don't use the actual ability. Like, you guys can see there's a bunch of flame coming down, which is pretty cool and all that stuff. But the main strength of Shiro Glacier doesn't really rely in the damage, which I find actually very funny because Shiro Glacier is actually a very, very, very high damage bloodline. I mean, the abilities are very useful. They also do a lot of damage, hence why it's going to be in this list. And I do actually think that, Shiro Glacier, you guys need to put some respect on Shiro Glacier's name, man. This bloodline is not that bad.
If you hit the like button on this video, you're guaranteed to get 10 million times luck. 100%.
The coming to 5th place is going to be Alfirama Shizen. Now, Alfirama Shizen's a very, very solid pick for this list, mainly because Alfirama Shizen is kind of like, it's very comparable to Raikkonen Shizen in the actual damage amount, but it does do a little bit less damage than Raikkonen, because most of the damage amounts from the actual Alfirama Shizen, bloodline in general, come from the actual ability. But the mode does, boast a lot of damage as well, because, it just has a lot of variety of abilities. Like you guys can see, 500k with one rotation, and the main reason why it's actually going to rank this high is because Alfirama Shizen in team fights would be the highest damage bloodline in the game. I think it's kind of uncomparable to the other bloodlines, because in team fights, Alfirama Shizen just absolutely demolishes all the other bloodlines damage-wise, because the AoEs that Alfirama Shizen are absolutely massive, super insanely long range, and, it would be the highest damage bloodline in team fights. But unfortunately, this is just in general and not just team fights. The coming to 4th place is obviously going to be Shindai Rengoku. You guys knew this was going to be in this list. I am, of course, using Shindai Ramen because why not? Shindai Ramen, I'm going to cook some ramen for you guys. If you guys like this video, I'll cook you a bowl of ramen, bet. But when it comes to, Shindai Ramen in this game, obviously, guys, this is just an absolutely massive damage bloodline. A lot of the actual, good part of this bloodline isn't really the damage itself, though, but the damage definitely is a big upside to the actual bloodline. I mean, like, the moves do a lot of damage, the M1s do a lot of damage, the actual clones are the highest damage clones in the entire game, and the other abilities also do tons of damage. But, like I just said, the clones do a lot of damage. It's the main reason why Shindo Ren is actually going to be here is because of the clones. The clones just do that much damage. So this is actually the counter right here, and you see he punch me. Now, the only issue with this is that you actually have to place lock stun them, but if you place lock stun them, it does a significant amount of damage. Like, look, he just got up and immediately died again. It's just absolutely huge damage burst from this bloodline itself, and I do think, you know, it's a solid addition to this list. Now, coming in third place is going to be one of the newest bloodlines in the game, Rei Karada. Now, Rei Karada does do a lot of damage, guys, but it's mostly going to be involved with the actual mode. The actual abilities, as you guys can see, they do a lot of damage, especially when you have a bunch of people around you. Like, that just did around 100k. That did actually 150k with 2 people. You know, the third ability obviously is a big damage burst combo extending ability, but I mean, like, the main damage amounts actually come from the mode of Rei Karada. The C spec is obviously, you know, a very high damage, you know, combo ender. The weapon spec does a lot of damage, yeah, if they actually stand inside of the AoE ability right here. And I mean, like, the M1s also do a bit of damage as well, because, you know, it's obviously multi-hits and stuff like that. So if you use a full M1 combo with someone, it does do a lot of damage. As you guys can see, you know, from the bottom left, it's a pretty high damage bloodline. I definitely think it deserves third place on this list, but I do think that if it wasn't for the actual mode C-spec doing so much damage, it definitely would have ranked lower. Now, coming in second place, it could be Riken Shizen. Now, obviously, most of you guys probably know about the second mode, which I'll show you guys. The second mode is by far one of the highest damage, if not the highest damage mode spec ability in the entire game, but you need to place lock stun, and you need to be extremely close to them, which is why I'm going to Riken Blade, and then I'm going to immediately C-spec them. Now, the place lock will not last long enough for me to do all this, but like you guys can see in the bottom left, it did like 220,000 damage. It can possibly do more depending on how long your place lock stun is, and it is the highest mode spec in the game. But that's not the only reason why it's going to rank that high on this list, because that would, you know, it'd probably be 5th place if it wasn't for that. The actual abilities also do quite a bit of damage as well, including the flower ability, which I learned recently is a very, very high damage and very, very, very annoying ability to fight, because if you jump into the flowers, it will absolutely destroy you. And then the third ability obviously is extremely good for team fight. Now, number one is obviously going to be Shindai Akuma. Now, Shindai Akuma is a very, very, very high damage bloodline, but the reason why it's going to rank this low is because it doesn't really do as much damage as any of the other bloodlines on this list, but it doesn't mean it's not a very high damage bloodline. I mean, like, the actual abilities like the meteor ability, things like that, all of the abilities do a decent amount of damage, if not a lot of damage, but it just doesn't compare to the other high damage bloodlines in this game. Now, out of number 2 is actually going to be Minakaze. Now, Minakaze Baron mode, obviously, guys, it does do a lot of damage, but it doesn't, that's not the main reason why Minakaze is going to be here. It's going to be because of the second ability, which, as you guys can see at the bottom left, it's a block breaking 80k damage ability in mode, and it's actually hilarious, but the first ability is a 2-second cooldown, 40,000 damage ability. So that's another reason why it's actually going to rank this high. By the way, guys, what is your go-to high damage bloodline in Shindo Life? Leave them in the comments below. We'll be checking them out. Now, coming in first place as the highest damage bloodline currently in Shindo Life is going to be Snake Man. Probably to the surprise of nobody if you've been playing Shindo Life for probably the past month or two. This bloodline does absurd damage amounts. It's by far the highest damage bloodline in the game. Now, when you actually throw in the mode, you may be thinking, oh, you know, mode? Obviously, that's going to make it do more damage. You have higher stats, but the mode actually makes the bloodline abilities scale more with stats. So out of mode, the Q spec still does a lot of damage. It's about 60k. With mode, yeah, 100,000 damage instant ability, 100,000 damage with a point and click ability. Absolutely ridiculous. I know that ability itself is probably the most broken ability of Snake Man. 100k damage literally for free. It's just kind of absurd. Now, the other abilities themselves also do quite a bit of damage in mode, but they're not really used for the damage amounts. I mean, like I said before, they do a lot of damage. As you guys can see, 70k off that second. Third ability does another 70k instantly. Those are very high damage abilities, but this first ability is absurd. Especially for burst combos. You could throw it in at the end of a burst combo, do like 240k damage. It's pretty insane. Now, the actual throwable ability of this also does a lot of damage. 80,000 damage combo extender. The ones obviously are buffed. They don't really do that much damage though. Now, the actual weapon spec of Snake Man is yet another counter. He didn't actually hit me, but the counter does do a lot of damage. It does about 80k damage from that. And the C spec, imagine the C spec but as a counter. That's literally what the counter is. It's about 90,000 damage off the counter. So Snake Man, obviously, guys, this bloodline has absolutely absurd amounts of damage, and that's kind of just one of the main reasons why it's so good. It's just the damage amounts are so high, it just power creeps every other bloodline that has ever existed in this game. Probably the highest damage bloodline to ever exist. And this is the nerfed version, by the way. Anyways, guys, as before this video, if you enjoyed this video, guys, bye bye.